Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robby Howell. The Kickstarter is still kicking my ass, so we're going to be doing another tier list this week, something in a very different direction from last week's video. This is a history channel as well as an Age of Empires channel, though the of course, accuracy of such history is dubious at best at times. And as such, as you might expect, I have a great fondness for history content on YouTube. Much of it medieval or ancient, not all of it though. And I wanted to take the opportunity today to share with you some of my favorite history-related YouTube channels of all time and rank them for you as potential viewing suggestions for you if you decide you want to dive deeper into the history sphere of this fine platform of ours. As you may notice, all of these tiers are positive. There are no bad history channels that I will be listing here today. We're only going to be focusing on the good stuff, though I think some of it is a little more niche, and I wouldn't recommend quite as enthusiastically as others. There's going to be a ton of channels I don't have on this list, and if so, it's because I probably haven't seen them before, so make sure to give me your recommendations down in the comments section below. And now, without any further ado, let's jump in alphabetically at the top with my favorite Age of Empires and one of my favorite history channels of all time, Armchair Saurus. This fine fellow kind of took my own approach to Age of Empires before I even started up my own channel, and in many ways was one of my biggest inspirations in starting my channel. He over-historifies Age of Empires stuff and tries to bring elements of realism into the game through a wonderful, humorous lens. He's very dry, he's very intelligent, he says a lot of good things. I love his content. It's also very digestible. He is, without a doubt, an all-time favorite history channel for me. Moving on to BattleHistories. All channels will be linked in the description, by the way. Anyways, BattleHistories is probably the smallest channel on this entire list. He does these really cool animated reconstructions of historical battles in a basic but very, very understandable bird's eye view sort of style. His voice is very soothing and quiet to listen to. Definitely crank your headphones up when you're listening to this guy. And he covers some incredibly interesting and underexplored parts of history, such as pre-Empire Rome and how it dealt with its other Italian neighbors during the infancy of its reign. I love BattleHistories. I think he has very high quality content, and I look forward to seeing him explode someday. I'm going to say he's kind of between worth a binge and worth a sub. I'm going to say worth a sub. Definitely worth a binge to many people, especially if you are interested in longer form analyses of certain historical events. Moving on to Bernadette Banner. Some of you may know that I was an actor and a model for quite a few years, and as such have a good amount of interest in fashion and costumes. And wouldn't you know it, good old Bernadette talks precisely about that, historical fashion and costuming. She's incredibly talented and makes a lot of her own pieces. She does some kind of topical clickbaity stuff, but I find that she handles it in a rather mature and tongue-in-cheek way. Obviously, fashion history isn't going to be for everyone, but I find it very, very captivating, and I think that she presents the topic in a very approachable and engaging manner. She is 100% worth a watch. Next, Dan Davis History. This fellow is an author who's written a number of books predominantly set in kind of the Bronze Age era and earlier. But man, does this guy do his research. He is a far better researcher than I am. I am inspired by the way that he does his research. And his channel mostly takes a really thorough look at various topics, generally speaking from the Bronze Age and earlier. Looking at early Indo-European traditions and stuff like that, as well as some analysis of Copper Age remains. I love his video on Qxir, the Iceman of Austria. He has a great channel, long-form documentary stuff, but he has a great voice, very easy to listen to. I think that Dan Davis is absolutely worth a sub, though if you like long-form content, easily worth a binge. Next, Fandabi Dozi. This is a fine Scottish fellow who does an outdoor survival style channel through a historical lens. He mostly focuses pretty precisely on 15 and 1600s Scotland, using kind of late medieval and early Renaissance Scottish traditions and methods of wilderness survival, as well as things like stick fighting martial arts, a little bit of music. It's a grab bag, but predominantly focused on medieval Scotland. As such, if you don't like medieval Scotland, you might not get as much out of his channel, but man, his commitment to authenticity is unbelievably admirable. For that alone, I would say that Fandabi Dozi is worth a watch. Next, the history of the Earth. I'm kind of cheating here because the history of the Earth hardly deals just with medieval or ancient history. Rather, it's going all the way back to the formation of the Earth. So a little bit out of the wheelhouse of this list, but I don't care because I love them. Because I personally consume quite a lot of like paleontology YouTube content as well as history. The two are similar, if not directly related. And the history of the Earth, I am sure, will be getting in future installments to more medieval and ancient human history rather than focusing on the more life science-oriented elements of early Earth. Ridiculously interesting, super high production quality, but it's like an hour long per episode, and they go into a lot of gritty detail. They are definitely worth a watch. Next, another excellent harmony of Age of Empires and history for gamers. He's the guy who does those realistic battle reenactments in Age of Empires, like he did one for Qxir, and he did one for Bannockburn, and he has a really cool channel, puts a ton of effort into his videos, and I love how accurately he reflects the scale and actually shows some of the actual give and take of what happened in those battles. I am sure many of you have seen him in your recommendations before, but in case you haven't watched him already, he is 100% worth a sub. Next, Hochelaga. This is a really eclectic and unusual channel that mostly covers, from what I've seen, kind of religious studies topics. He talks a lot about Christian demonology, but also dabbles a little bit into the history side of things, especially how certain texts or pieces of art were created and the kind of socio-political environments that allowed them to manifest. He had a video on Hieronymus Bosch that I, in particular, recommend. Again, a bit of a niche topic, but if you have any interest in the religious side of history, he is for sure worth a watch. Jill Bearup. Now, this is a woman after my own heart. She is a professional actress and specializes in stage combat. Her channel, while it also does some stuff with kind of costuming and historical dress, it has a number of great discussions of fighting techniques, as well as her flagship series where she goes through and rates fictional characters or fictional depictions of characters based on how authentic and well done their costumes and armor are. She is a very charming person who has a really fun presentation style. She is 100% worthy of a sub. Next up, Joerg Sprave, the crossbow daddy himself. I'm sure many of you know him. He creates weapons, often with a historical bent, and has done things like create a medievally viable automatic repeater bow attachment that he called the Instant Legolas. He's a very charming fellow who makes some really remarkable stuff. He's had battles with YouTube in his day as well. I highly recommend you support him if you have not done so already with a watch. Next up, Lindybeige! He has one of the most eclectic channels on YouTube. Obviously, his main wheelhouse is history, especially things like analyzing movies and stuff like that, and also reviewing long-form books and content and kind of giving his own reports on historical accounts based on what he learns. He also does things like swing dancing, and he's done a bunch of like tourism stuff recently. He tends to love tanks and kind of Great War, World War II era stuff that I'm not personally as interested in, but he also has some awesome medieval content. And most notably, Lindybeige is one of the first YouTube channels I ever subscribed to. I've been following him for something like 9 years, and I have never gotten bored of his content. A fantastic presenter with a really wonderful catalog of content for you to pursue. I could not put him lower than an all-time favorite for me. Next, the Metatron. Another one of these kind of classic history YouTubers. Metatron talks about all sorts of historical topics. He does kind of explainers, he does debunkings, he goes through crappy articles and says how they're wrong, all sorts of fun stuff. He's had his battles with controversy, but has a pretty appealing presentation style, and overall I really like a lot of the topic he covers. I would say that he is absolutely worth a watch. Next, Modern History TV. The charismatic, what is it, like super successful business tycoon Jason, who now just like flings around his fortune to do cool stuff like get a suit of armor and learn how to ride a warhorse. He's very charming and has some really interesting videos where he talks about like how people brushed their teeth or how warhorses were mounted in full armor. A lot of really pragmatic topics to complement being kind of a lovable hobbyist who's really committed to what he's doing. He is absolutely worth a watch in my eyes. Next, Primitive Technology. I could see some people saying that this was not a history channel either, but I absolutely think it is. Primitive Technology is a channel of an Australian fellow who goes off into the rainforest and literally makes stuff from scratch. Like scratch. The sort of thing where you start with a stick and work your way up to a stone knife. Unbelievable ambiance. This guy literally goes out there for days to get his job done. His videos have no talking, it's just rainforest sounds with captions that you can turn on. His effort is unbelievable. He's done things like smelt iron and is working on turning it into something. I don't think I've seen a channel that so single-handedly shaped the face of YouTube, because there's all these like copycat channels popping up that just kind of copy what he's doing crappily and fake most of it. This guy is the real deal. I've been watching him, I think, since his third video. And even if he's not like medieval history, he is absolutely doing like an active reconstructive look at how ancient peoples may have worked and developed on a day-to-day basis. He is by far and away an all-time fave. If you have not seen his channel, you need to do so. Let's move on to Qxir. This is an Irish animator with a very fun, tongue-in-cheek, kind of sardonic art style and presentation style. He goes heavy on the dark comedy and covers a wide variety of topics. He has a lot more contemporary stuff on his channel, like history from the 1900s and on, but he has a few videos focusing on earlier eras as well. His humor and art style is by itself worth a watch, and if you have any interest in more modern side of history, especially some of the more like weird, cool, strange events that you might not see elsewhere on YouTube, I would absolutely say that Qxir is worth a sub. Moving on. And who's this, do you think? Why, that might be me! Yes, indeed, my friends. I, too, have a channel, a new channel, in fact, Robby Lava Games, where I am solely focusing my channel on talking about my own work in tabletop games, specifically my current game, Enclave, now out on Kickstarter. Link to that down in the description below. If you have any interest in tabletop games whatsoever, or want to see more of what this Enclave thing is about, please do drop the second channel a sub. I established it so I can keep my Age of Empires and tabletop content separate, and hopefully make it so that if you're here for Age of Empires, you don't have to sift through as much extraneous content right now. But for all those who are interested, I would be tremendously grateful if you would consider me worthy of a sub. Let's move on. Schola Gladiatoria. If you are looking for dry, picture-perfect analysis of medieval weaponry, this is the channel for it. Matt Easton is an unbelievably well-versed educator, and he has some of the most like textbook perfect medievalist content that I have ever found on the internet. He is a little dry for me. I like channels that have a little bit more pop to them, I suppose. But in terms of being like a scholar who is taking his work to an online platform, you cannot do much better than Schola Gladiatoria. He is absolutely worth a sub. Moving swiftly onward to Sam O'Nella. I'd be shocked if more than a few of you hadn't heard of this guy already. He's one of the original stickmen funny guys that you see on YouTube. He spawned pretty much a whole genre by himself. People celebrate whenever he uploads because it happens so rarely. He is hysterically funny, covers some really interesting topics, though again, he tends to focus more on kind of like modern history or near modern history, but he does a little bit of medieval stuff as well. And regardless, he is quite possibly the funniest person I have ever had the pleasure of listening to on the internet. He is 100% worthy of a binge, if you haven't seen his content before, and haven't already binged it multiple times like I have. Next, on to probably the second most obscure channel on this list, Schwerpunkt. I don't know where to start with Schwerpunkt. He seems to take a random historical topic every week and make like an hour-and-a-half long college-level introductory course to it. I first discovered him when I was doing my Swedes video way back in the day. He had a whole video about like the formation of medieval Sweden. And even though he is very dry, he's not like a super charismatic presenter, man, the sheer information density on this lad is insane. He covers pretty much anything from like the fall of Rome up to World War II and has, God, I don't know, thousands of hours worth of content on his channel. It can be a little tough to get through, but especially if you're going into the video knowing what you're looking for and have a pen and paper ready to take notes, Schwerpunkt is an invaluable source. If nothing else, he is 100% worthy of a watch. Next, Shadiversity, a charismatic Australian fellow talking about his love of machiculations and fantasy medievalisms. He has now expanded his enterprise into like a whole business with a number of co-hosts joining him, but I loved the good old days when Shad was presenting by himself, sometimes accompanied by his friends. That's not to say the new content is bad by any means. I love his stuff still. It's just not like as automatic of an instant watch for me as it used to be. Even so, I find Shad to be an incredibly wholesome content creator who has a really good heart. He does a great job of going through and enumerating when he makes mistakes in his videos. And if nothing else, I really like the content that he covers. I would say that Shadiversity is 100% worthy of a sub. Next, Tasting History with Max Miller. Much like I have quite a lot of interest in medieval and historical fashion, I have a similar interest in medieval and historical food. And even though I know a lot of people mention that other channel Townsend's, I haven't personally seen them. I am a longtime fan, a devoted fan of Max Miller. Not only is he one of the most wholesome creators on the platform and has a very charming and engaging and friendly presentation style, but he actually goes out of his way to make the recipes warts and all, taste them warts and all, and give some really nice, if boilerplate, breakdowns of the era and the topic that he is covering. I love Max Miller and was lucky enough to find him on his 3rd ever video. He is 100% worthy of a binge, both of his videos and of the food. Moving on to Thegn Thrand. He kind of falls into the Shadiversity, Lindybeige, Modern History, TV, Metatron camp of like historical explainer guys. I personally didn't get into Thegn Thrand as much as the others, but I think that he is very, very admirable in how he approaches topics, and I love how he more aggressively tries to test out some of the things that he is working on in a given video. Because of that, I would say that he is absolutely worthy of a watch. And lastly on our list, we come to Trey the Explainer. Now, he originally started as largely a paleontology channel, but he's branched out to do some other things since then. He has this one video on Minoan fashion and society that is one of the best pieces of historical content I've ever seen on YouTube. His style is a little bit blithe, but occasionally he'll throw in a little bit of a joke here and there to keep, simpletons like me invested. I find Trey to be quite compelling. I love the topics he covers, and I find he goes into a lot of really excellent depth. Because of that, I would say that Trey the Explainer is absolutely worthy of a sub. And there you go. Those are all of the historical or tangentially historically relevant channels on YouTube that I currently watch. Like I said, I enjoy all of these channels and can recommend them wholeheartedly to anyone who asks. But that's just my opinion. Now I want to hear what you guys think. Are there any obvious misses to this list? Are there any big historical channels that I really should be watching, but I'm not? I know for one that Todd's Workshop, I know he's really good, I just haven't gotten into his content. I know that Townsend's is really good, I just haven't gotten into their content. And let me know if you find any channels on this list that you end up subscribing to and really, really liking. It's really fun for me to get a chance to share some of my YouTube tastes because I've been on this platform for God knows how long and have gone through a whole lot of phases on it. So please let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Make sure to go check out my second channel on diceless games, world building, and similar, as well as the Kickstarter if you haven't seen it yet. But until next time, my name is Robby Howell, and ciao for now.